My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm alive, one of the few who walked out of the isolation ward when everything went wrong. I was just a guard, working nights, doing shifts in places no one ever visits. The wing was old, hidden at the back of the hospital, sealed from the public. They told us it was for patients with dangerous diseases, people who needed to be kept away. But we all knew that wasn't the truth. The isolation ward was never about care, it was about experiments. The scientists worked deep into the night, lights glowing behind heavy glass, shadows moving where no patient should have been. We didn't get to ask questions. We were just told to keep the doors locked, keep the cameras running, and stay out of the rooms. That was the rule. Then came Subject 17. Nobody called him by a name, only a number. He had been sick, some kind of degenerative disease, at least that's what they told us. But when the experiment started, his body began to change. He stopped looking human. His voice, when we heard it through the walls, sounded cracked and wet, like it was coming from somewhere too deep in his throat. The doctors said it was just side effects. We didn't believe them. That night, the storm came in hard. Lightning cut the sky, the power flickered across the whole building, alarms went off, and the emergency locks failed. I was on the security desk when it happened. Cameras went black, then came back with static, and the reinforced door to Subject 17's cell unlocked by itself. We were sent to check it. For guards, rifles ready. The hallway was dark, the fluorescent lights buzzing and dimming with every surge. When we reached the cell, the smell hit first, like rotting meat mixed with chemicals. The door was wide open, the restraints inside were snapped like they were nothing, the walls shredded with deep claw marks. Subject 17 was gone. We pulled back, weapons up, every corner of that hallway felt alive. Then we heard it, heavy breathing, too deep, too loud, echoing from somewhere inside the ward. One of the guards whispered that it didn't sound human anymore. And he was right. We pulled back to the main hallway, weapons tight against our shoulders, radios crackling with nothing but static. The storm outside was killing the signals, no contact with the outside, no help coming. We were alone in that place, and somewhere inside the dark halls, Subject 17 was moving. The scientists, they were panicking. They tried to convince us it was just a containment error, that the subject was weak, unstable, nothing to fear. But I had seen the claw marks, deep gouges cut through steel. Weak men don't do that. We split into two teams, one covering the stairwell, the other sweeping the ward. I went with the sweep. Every hallway felt too narrow. Every door seemed ready to open. The lights flickered and cast long shadows, stretching across the floor, bending shapes until you couldn't tell what was real. Then we heard it, a sound like bones grinding together, followed by a low growl, wet and broken. One of the guards froze, whispering a prayer under his breath. Then the thing stepped into the light. It was huge, twisted, its body swollen in places like the skin couldn't hold what was underneath. Stitches from old surgeries split open as it moved, and its face was stretched, pulled apart by bone and muscle that didn't belong. Its eyes caught the light and reflected back like glass. It wasn't a patient anymore. It wasn't even human. The first guard fired. The shots cracked loud in the hallway, but the thing didn't drop. It lurched forward, fast for something so big, and it slammed him into the wall so hard the concrete split. The rest of us opened fire, bullets tearing into it, but it just kept coming. We ran. I don't even remember choosing. We just moved back through the halls, trying to regroup. The radios screamed with feedback, alarms blared as power cut in and out, and behind us, the sound of that creature echoed, claws scraping, dragging, following. By the time we reached the security office, there were only 2 of us left from my team. The others, they didn't make it. I could still hear their screams, cut off fast. The scientists locked themselves in another room, yelling through the intercom that we had to contain the subject, that it couldn't be allowed to leave the building. But I wasn't thinking about containment. I was thinking about surviving. The cameras came back online, static clearing for just a second, and there it was. Subject 17, walking through the corridor, hunched, bleeding, but still alive, stronger than before. It stopped, looked straight into the camera, and I swear it smiled. That was the first moment I knew we weren't leaving that place alive. We stayed locked in the security office, doors barricaded, rifles low on ammo. The cameras flickered from feed to feed, showing what was left of the ward. Hallways smeared with blood, overturned gurneys, lights swinging from the ceiling. The scientists were still alive in their lab, screaming orders through the intercom, telling us to herd Subject 17 back toward containment. They still thought of him as a subject, as an experiment. I knew better. It wasn't human anymore. It was a predator, and we were just prey. The power cut again. Every screen went black. The hum of machines died. And in the silence, we heard it moving outside the office. Slow, dragging steps, claws tapping against the floor. One of the guards panicked, opened fire at the door like that would help. The noise was a mistake. The thing slammed against the wall, the metal buckling, dust falling from the ceiling. We backed away, weapons shaking, but it didn't push through. It was toying with us, circling, scraping its claws across the walls, making sure we knew it was there. The other guard, Davis, wanted to make a run for the stairwell. I told him it was suicide, but he went anyway. He cracked the door, bolted down the hall, boots pounding fast, and then the sound stopped. A scream echoed, sharp, short, and then nothing. The cameras came back for a second, just long enough to show Davis hanging in the air, the creature's claws buried through him like hooks. I was alone now. The scientists begged me to get to them, said they had a plan, said they could reverse what had happened. I didn't believe a word, but it was either sit and wait to die or move. I grabbed what ammo I had left, stepped into the hall, and started walking. The place smelled like copper and chemicals, thick enough to choke. Every step echoed, every light flickered, and I knew it was close. That's when I saw it again, standing at the far end of the hallway, hunched and massive, its skin torn and pulsing with something alive underneath. It didn't charge this time. It just stood there, breathing, watching me like it was waiting. And in that moment, I realized something. The creature wasn't hunting everyone. It was hunting me. I didn't move toward it. I backed away slow, step by step, until the thing sank back into the dark and vanished. I knew it could have killed me right there, but it didn't. It was waiting, following, like it wanted me to run. So I did the only thing I could. I headed for the lab. The scientists opened the door quick when I reached them, dragging me inside and bolting it shut behind. The room was cluttered with overturned tables, broken glass, and equipment still humming on backup batteries. Their faces were pale, eyes wide, coats splattered with blood. They weren't soldiers, they weren't trained for this. They were just desperate men clinging to the lie that they were still in control. One of them shoved a folder in my hands, full of scans and notes on Subject 17. They said he was never supposed to survive this long, that the experiments were meant to break down the disease inside him, but instead they changed him, rebuilt him. Now his body was feeding off the chemicals, adapting to everything they threw at him, and the more damage he took, the stronger he got. Their plan was simple and insane. Lure him back to the containment chamber, flood the room with every volatile chemical left in storage, and use the hospital's emergency grid to overload the wiring. Fire and electricity. They swore it would kill him. I asked who was going to bait the monster into the chamber. They didn't answer. Before we could argue more, the lights snapped off, the room went black, and we heard the claws drag down the hallway outside. The creature was there, listening, waiting. The scientists whispered to each other, their voices trembling. Then one of them screamed, not because the creature had grabbed him, but because he realized the vents above us were wide open. Something heavy shifted in the ducts, metal bending, dust falling. The thing wasn't outside anymore. It was already inside. The ceiling above us groaned, vents rattling, dust falling in thick clouds. The scientists froze, staring up like cornered animals, and then the metal gave way with a scream of tearing steel. Subject 17 crashed down into the lab, twisted limbs unfolding, its massive body blotting out the emergency lights. The scientists panicked. One ran for the door, fumbling with the lock, but the creature was faster. Its arm lashed out, claws punching clean through his chest, lifting him into the air like he weighed nothing. Blood sprayed across the walls, and the man's scream cut off in a wet choke. The others dove for cover, crawling behind desks and equipment, but there was no hiding. I raised my rifle and fired, round after round, the flashes lighting up its deformed face, skin stretched and tearing, eyes glowing in the dark like shards of glass. The shots barely slowed it, but it turned on me, focused, like it knew I was the only real threat. The last shell clicked empty. I dropped the rifle, grabbed a pipe from the floor, and backed toward the storage hall. The surviving scientist yelled at me, voice breaking, "The chamber! We need to get it into the chamber." He was already sprinting for the controls, hands shaking as he tried to override the lockdown. The creature lunged, smashing through metal tables like they were paper, its claws tearing trenches in the floor. I ran, heart slamming in my chest, boots slipping on blood as I drew it down the corridor. Every breath it took sounded like an engine choking. Every step shook the walls. It was faster than me, always just a second away from grabbing my back. I burst into the containment wing, the reinforced chamber waiting ahead, its heavy door wide open. The scientist screamed at me through the intercom, telling me to lure it inside, to make it follow me. And it worked. The monster charged after me, filling the hallway, its shadow stretching across the walls like a living storm. I dove through the door, rolled across the floor, and the creature slammed in behind me, claws raking sparks across the steel. The scientist hit the switch. The chamber door sealed with a thunderous clang, locking me and the creature inside together. The heavy door clanged shut behind us, sealing the chamber tight. The sound echoed like a death sentence. My heart hammered, sweat running into my eyes, rifle empty, only a steel pipe in my hands. Across the room, the creature crouched low, its chest heaving, each breath like a furnace roaring, each muscle twitching as if it could barely contain itself. The lights flickered, pale strips of yellow shaking above, and in the stuttering glow, I saw its body up close. Stretched flesh splitting at the seams, veins pulsing with a black chemical sludge, bones pushing out in jagged angles. The face was a nightmare, jaw broken wide, teeth sharpened from bone rubbing against bone, and behind it all, eyes that weren't eyes anymore, just glowing white glass staring through me. It stalked forward slow, claws dragging across the floor, sparks jumping as steel scraped. I backed away until my shoulders hit the chamber wall. The intercom crackled above me, the scientist yelling that I had to keep it distracted, that he was priming the chemical release, that I had to survive just a few more minutes. Minutes felt like hours in that room. The thing roared, a sound so deep the walls shook, and then it lunged. I swung the pipe, metal bending as it smashed across its arm, but the strike barely staggered it. The claws slashed across my vest, tearing through the plates, throwing me to the floor. Pain lit up my chest, ribs cracking, but I rolled before the claws came down again, sparks spitting where they struck concrete. I scrambled up, grabbed a fallen piece of broken equipment, hurled it into its face. The impact made it reel back for just a second, enough for me to dive behind the chemical tanks stacked along the wall. The stench burned my throat, acrid and heavy, tubes hissing where valves leaked. The scientist's voice screamed in my earpiece, "Keep it close to the tanks. I'm flooding them now." The creature smelled it too, its head tilted, tongue lashing out, tasting the air. Then it slammed into the tanks, metal screeching as liquid burst out, spraying across the floor in steaming puddles. My skin burned where droplets touched, but I stayed low, waited until it turned its gaze away, and then I drove the pipe into its side with everything I had. The blow sank deep into torn flesh. It roared and spun, backhanding me across the chamber, my body crashing into the steel wall so hard my vision blurred. The room filled with vapor, thick clouds rising, chemicals mixing, burning my lungs. The scientist screamed through the intercom, Now, get clear, I'm charging the grid." But there was nowhere to run. The door was locked, and I was trapped inside with it. The creature lunged again, claws gouging into the wall inches from my head. I ducked, grabbed a shattered glass canister, and jammed it into one of the open wounds across its chest. The chemical hissed, flesh sizzling, black smoke pouring out. It howled in rage, swinging wild, smashing the chamber to pieces, trying to claw the burning from its body. The emergency lights flashed red, sirens wailing as the system overloaded. Sparks rained down from the ceiling, wires bursting. The scientist's last words cut through the static. "Hold it there. Hold it just a second longer." I grabbed the monster's arm as it swung at me, shoved with everything I had, forcing it back against the main chemical tank. It pressed me into the steel, strength crushing the breath from my chest, its teeth inches from my face, hot breath reeking of blood and acid. I thought that was it, that I was done. Then the power grid blew. The chamber erupted in a storm of fire and electricity, arcs of blue lightning whipping across the walls, igniting the chemicals. The explosion threw us both off our feet, flames racing up the walls, smoke boiling in the air. The creature convulsed, body jerking as the current ripped through it, flesh bursting, bones snapping, black fluid boiling off its skin. I crawled toward the corner, shielding my face as the chamber lit up like the sun. The monster let out one final scream, high and broken, before collapsing into the fire. Its massive body writhed once, twice, then stilled, burning in the inferno, skin cracking away until nothing human or inhuman remained. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of fire. The door finally released, steel groaning open, and I stumbled out, coughing, skin blistered, uniform scorched. The scientists were gone, consumed by the explosion or fled before the blast. Backup arrived minutes later, storm dying off outside, flashing lights cutting through smoke. They asked me what happened, what caused it, what I saw. I told them the truth, that it wasn't a patient anymore, it wasn't an accident, it was a creation, a monster built from experiments that should never have been done. I was the only survivor, and I'll never forget the sound of its claws dragging across the floor, waiting for me in the dark. So if you're listening to this, remember my words. You don't play with nature, you don't twist the human body into something it was never meant to be. Because once you cross that line, you don't just lose control of the experiment. You unleash something that will destroy everything around it. That's the truth I carried out of the isolation ward, and I'll carry it with me until the day I die.